In this lesson, we're going to update our existing application to allow for other types of commands. Specifically, we're going to add the ability for the user to call a post command in our API. Now, this will include the ability to send data in the body of our command. But when we're doing this, we're also going to add the ability later to easily add things like put, patch, and delete to our API user interface. So this is lesson number 6 in our complete course on building a Postman clone app. This course has been designed to be beginner-friendly and an example of what you might put into a portfolio. Although don't just directly copy this work into your portfolio needs to be uniquely yours, not just a copy of someone else's work. If you want to go further into C#, I would encourage you to go to imtimcorey.com and check out the Dev Pass. Once you get the Dev Pass, I would recommend that you start the master course to get job ready and then fill in the gaps with one or more of the dozens of topic-specific courses included. The Dev Pass will get you up to speed and keep you up to date in your software development career. So let's jump over here to our code. And we have right now a user interface that takes in our API and then spits out the results. But the problem is, what if you want to do a different command besides just a get? Because that's what this is a get command. What if you want to do a post or a put or a patch, or delete, or the other HTTP verbs? Well, there's no way of doing that right now, and that's something that a Postman clone should do. So let's figure out how to make this work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of hacking away at this user interface. First, I'm going to shrink down this text box quite a bit and just kind of move things over, because what I want to do is I want to add a drop-down. This would be a combo box. I call them drop-downs, but the official name is combo box. Now, I could put the a description here or a descriptor here, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to actually move this over and just move this back to where it was, the API, and then we'll have a drop down here for the various verbs, and then our URL. This is a pretty standard way of doing things. So let's go over here to our properties, and the first thing to do is rename this from combo box 1 to HTTP verb selection. Okay, and then in here, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down here to items. We're keeping this really simple. We're not going to hook up a data source, which we could do, but it's kind of overkill when your data source is something that won't change. It's kind of like having a drop down of US states. It won't really change. And yes, it may in the future at one point, but that's a really tiny possibility. It might happen once. And the same is true here. Your HTTP verbs aren't going to really change unless we actually change code as well. So we're not going to try and wire up to a data source, which would slow down the app. We're just going to put it right in items. So we'll go to collection here, and we're going to say get. And the default for verbs is to put them in all caps. And we're just going to do get and post at this point, because right now our UI only supports get, but we're going to, in the next lesson, wire up the code for post. So let's put that in now. And eventually we'll have, patch and all the rest, but we're not going to do that yet. Let's keep it to what we do support or are working to support. So there's our items in the dropdown, and the values for those are just going to be the actual words. We're not going to worry about trying to assign a number to those values and convert back and all that complexity you don't need. We're just going to say, hey, is it get? Then do get command. If it's post, then do post. So that's one thing. But the other thing is we're going to change up here is the drop-down style. So the drop-down style, we're going to change to a drop-down list as opposed to a drop-down. And let me show you why real quick. So let's start this up. And we're going to see the drop-downs, and I can see get, but I can, type more things. And that's not great because, it could say, it could actually be the value then getter, but that's not how that works. We don't want it to do that. So instead, we're going to change this to a drop down, wait for it to load. We want to change this to a drop down list. So if we do that and we run it again, let me bring us back over here and we choose get, well, that's all we can do. We can choose it. We can't type in that box. We can type the P and it goes to post, or type G and go to get, but we can't, actually change the values. It's just whatever the options are for our dropdown. So that now allows us to have our get and our post. So I think that's a good first step. And if we look here at the width, it looks like our dropdown is a little too big. I think we can shrink that down some. So let's do that. Let's shrink it down to about there. That means we can make this text box a bit bigger for our text. We can try it again to make sure it's working properly. Post, yeah, it's a little short now. So we could get more precise in this, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to, get it close, somewhere around there. So with that, it should be that even when we select post, it fits in. And if we wanted to, make sure that this UI is getting right, let's go over here to our items and add patch is a little longer and delete is a little longer, just to see, if those are going to work. I'm already guessing that delete is going to be a little too long. So let's go about there and see if that works. And delete. We've got some room here. We've got a little bit of room to make this a little smaller if we want to, which I do. I want to take up as little space as possible for that drop down. So with patch, that works. With delete, that works. So I think that's as big as the box needs to be. Therefore, we can call that good. We can shrink down, grow this box to be, the kind of the same spacing as what the button is. So now we have API, and then we have the drop down here, which, by the way, we can move this over to be closer, and then we can make this closer again. It's kind of fiddly little things with the a user interface to make sure that it lays out right. So now we have API. We can choose the verb, we can choose the URL, and we can hit go. So that's the first part of this, but the other part is we're going to want to have a body of information. And we're going to keep this simple for right now and just say the body's going to be JSON. But we still need a body, and that means we have to have another text box here that's pretty much this size. And that's getting a little bit, too much to put on a screen at one time. So let's shrink this down for now. And I am going to actually delete this label. And then I'm going to come over here at Toolbox, and down under Containers, I'm going to select the tab control. We're going to drag this on here, and in the tab control, I'm going to resize this to be the same size as the width of my page, and then we can move it up here a little bit more, and I'll drag it down in a minute. But what we're going to have is a couple of tabs here. So the tab control, let's rename it first. So this is going to be our, let's call it call data, because it's both the input and output data of our calls, our API calls. So then in here, what we have is we have a set of tabs. So we have a tab pages collection. And if we click the ellipsis here, we can see we have tab page 0, or tab page 1, tab page 2. So let's change this to be the A to Z organization, like I prefer. And we're going to call this the body. And then let's call this tab body. Let's call it body tab. There we go. And then we'll call this the output tab. Okay. So that gives us our two tabs, all we're going to use for right now. For the text, we're going to say output. And here we'll say this is body. Okay, so now you have two tabs, body and output, and our results window. Well, let's cut that out and paste it. When we select the tab item, notice that the selection is now inside of the overall tab unit, not this outer shell, but if we select the tab itself, we're inside of it. We can paste our control. Wait a minute, wait for it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go behind? Or is it just being slow? Oh, you know what? Let me try something. Let's undo these changes. Okay, let me try this again. I believe what I did was I copied instead of pasted. There we go, I pasted in. Okay, so now if we go to body, that control goes away, but go back to output, it's back. So now the control is on just this tab. So what we're going to do with this control, this is our results text, but what we want to do is go to doc and do this drop down and select the middle item, which is the fill. And that will fill now our tab. So if our tab gets smaller, so does, if our overall tab gets smaller, so does our text box. And if it gets bigger, then so is our text box. So is that still aligned correctly? Can't quite tell. Yes, okay. So that is our text box for the results. Now let's go over to body, and we should be able to just paste again. This time it's going to have a new text box, but text box 1. Let's call this the body text. And we're going to dock this. So it's a full view. And we are going to make sure that it is it's not locked, it is enabled, and it's not read-only. That's the one change. There we go. So it's not read-only. We want to be able to type in this box, whereas the output, we don't want to be able to type in. Now, I want you to notice that in the output, this is called results text, and this one's called body text. So it's kind of clear what we're doing. We could modify this instead of results text. We could call it output text, but you know what? I think we should probably call this tab results instead of output. How about that? So results. I think it's a little clearer then what that's for, and it's results tab. Okay, so body and results, that makes a little more sense. Okay, so now things should work the way they used to. It's just we have a results tab and a body tab. Let's just make sure that's true because we've changed a few things around. So we'll run this and we'll come over here. We'll select get, and we actually have the extra stuff in there we need to delete. We'll paste in our URL, and we'll go to the results window and say go, and there's our results. So our results are in there. We have, some extra lines here. It makes it a little bit harder to read, but that's just because of the size of our box. So with that, that works fine. The body is empty, of course, but we could type in here, first name, Tim, last name, Corey, like so. And that would be a body we could send if we were going to post to this URL. But of course, it doesn't take a first and last name. And we'll work on actually wiring the code for this in our next lesson. But what we have now is a working UI for handling sending a body and getting the results back for a get command. So let's clean up our drop down. So wait for it to reload, items, and we're going to delete the additional two that we're not doing soon, because I want to make sure that we are keeping this clean and trying to keep this portfolio ready. And this is the next thing to talk about, is the fact that we have changed the user interface, but I'm not quite ready yet to update our README with the new screenshots because of the fact that I want to get this working. I don't love the idea of updating your UI, but not yet having code there. It's kind of like saying, yeah, we're going to do this, but it doesn't actually work. And then it makes your application actually look worse, not better, because you've got non-working parts. So the question becomes how much actually works. And if you have to know specifically how to fill things in or get it to work, that's not great. Okay, so the one thing that I think we're going to write in code, even though this is a UI lesson, I do want to make one modification to our dashboard code. So let's go to the code and say yes. Okay, here what we're going to do, that was just line endings because of Linux versus Windows and how they deal with line endings. But I want to change this dropdown. So the dropdown right now is HTTP verb selection. So I want to say HTTP verb selection dot selected item equals get. So now if we run this, then by default, it's a get command. Okay, so that way you're not faced with an empty dropdown saying, what is this? Well, by default, it says get. And you go, whoa, I don't want to do get, I want to do post. Oh, it's right there. Cool. So that makes it a little clearer what's going on here when we have our selection. The one other thing you should probably tweak in the code, and again, this is a UI thing, so I'm going to do it, is let's go over to, let's actually stop this and go to our properties for this tab control. It's called call data. And in our API call here, this is just for gets right now, but when we put the text in the text box, we should probably also say call data dot selected tab equals, and we have the output or the results tab. The results tab. There we go. We changed from output to results. So what this will do is, even if we don't have it selected, let's just say that I was playing around here and I decide, yeah, I'm gonna paste in my URL, but then I'm also going to put in here my first name, Tim. And I won't keep going, but I'm putting some data in here just to play around, but I know I'm not going to send that data. I'm just messing around to make sure I could in the body. But if I hit go here, it will now switch to the results view. So even though we were in the body view, when I hit go, it goes to the results view. So just a little thing like that that allows us to have a nice quality of life update. So our current app works with just get, but we now have everything set up for working with post. The only thing we haven't done is actually do anything when we select one of these drop-down items. So that's going to be the next video, is we're going to wire up the code for this. So we have all the UI set up, but now it's code time, which again comes to my challenge time to you. This course is about learning how to be a developer, learning how to take a challenge and complete it, because that's what you're going to do in your job. And really it's about practicing what you've already learned. So making sure you know that you can do what you think you can do. So here's a great time to do this again, and that is, I've given you all the UI. Now would be a great time to wire up the post call. So figure out how to know when it's a get versus a post, and then figure out what to do when you do a post. And I think that because of the fact that we're doing all this work, I think that we're going to have to kind of rework how we do our code behind. Because right now our code behind is getting rather large. We've got a lot of code back there. I think we might have to trim it down by putting more into our class library without putting user interface stuff in our class library. So there's a lot to do there, I think, but I think that that'd be a great opportunity for you to practice this. So before the next video comes out, or before you watch the next video, go ahead and make your application work with this with this data, with this UI, so that when you put in post and pass whatever URL you want, and you put a body text in there, well, it'll actually work. And again, this JSON placeholder typecode.com, this URL does have the ability to do not just get commands, but also post commands. So you can test out using the information from that site. So you can go there and find out how to actually make a call to test this. But that's your challenge, is to get this done before you watch how I would do it. All right. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.